Hey, I am Jake. Welcome to the Fireside Tattoo Network. On this show, we talk really often about using a limited color palette in your paintings and also in your tattooing. Now, I thought today I would give a quick tip on how to use complementaries in a limited palette to achieve a huge spectrum of muted tones. A lot of times we'll get questions about what color palette we're using, say, in some of these painterly floral pieces that I've been posting a lot of. And people think that we're pulling a lot of muted colors directly out of the tube, and in fact we're using only really high key bright colors, but using them in a way that we get an infinite number of subtle off tones and any value that you can imagine. So let's check it out. All right, so I'm just gonna grab two random complementary colors. We're gonna go with, say, yellow and purple. So let's imagine a scenario here where we are tattooing a sunflower. Right? We're tattooing kind of a realistic sunflower, and it's sitting at a 3/4 view, so as the petals come out and they're in the foreground, they're in the light, we're looking for a really vibrant, light, bright yellow. And as they recede, we want them to neutralize and darken because high key colors come towards us and neutral colors recede. So what we see a lot of people do is they work with their yellow and they get all of their foreground petals in place. And then as they move backwards, they feel like they need to darken it, so they'll go to black. And look what happens whenever I go to black. It turns green. Some might not necessarily want green as I move back through these petals. Maybe I have some greens in another area and I'm trying to avoid those, or maybe I just want to neutralize this bright color and I don't want to really change colors altogether. So what I might do instead is, let me flip this over, from my yellow, I might hit this purple, which is the complement of yellow. And let's see what happens whenever I bump into the purple. That yellow doesn't turn green. It keeps its chroma, but it neutralizes. It doesn't really gray, it just neutralizes. So what that does is, if this is less intense than this, from a value standpoint, this doesn't really get much darker. And the reason for that is because I chose a light purple, a purple that isn't too much darker on the grayscale than this kind of medium yellow. Now let's say I did want to go darker than this. Let's say there's some shadow petals. I could do the same thing, but rather than go into my light purple, I might bump into a slightly darker purple. And it doesn't take a lot of this. It'll really overwhelm your yellow pretty quickly if you're not careful. So you have to come back, and then let's see what happens. We've done the same thing, we've just gone a little bit darker. It didn't turn green. It didn't do what it did with the black. It just simply neutralized. So I'm not saying that you can't use black or white to darken or lighten a color. What I am saying is that you probably shouldn't only use black or white. So let's say I get it to this point and I've got this neutral color. If I still am not quite dark enough, I could touch that black, and I've already manipulated this color enough, I've neutralized it enough with that purple that the black isn't going to overwhelmingly green it out. So say that I've done this with our purple. I got it a little darker. At some point it'll start to shift more to purple, and you may not want it to cross the yellow spectrum and go into purple. So at that point you might slightly touch your black and then darken from there. So you can slowly creep it darker with black or creep it lighter with white, but you don't want to rely on those primarily to neutralize that color as it recedes into the distance. So and you can do this with any complementary. You could do it with blue and orange, you could do it with reds and greens. Just think, when I want to neutralize a color, I'm going to look first to its complementary. Then I'm going to ask, do I want it to go darker and more neutral, or lighter or more neutral, or stay about the same value and more neutral? And that'll determine whether I go with a dark purple, a medium purple, or a light purple, or whatever the complementary might be. So that's it. I hope that helps. We'll see you next time.